We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today. I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked. Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
It's 11 o'clock, I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers. And helping me do that is a mixture of brain and brawn, Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen. Big stories, big opinions, and a few laughs along the way. First up, the headlines with Tatiana Sanchez.
I'm Tatiana Sanchez in the GB newsroom. The Cabinet Office has chaired an emergency COBRA meeting as the UK could hit a record-high temperature of 40 degrees next week. It's after the Met Office issued the first and highest red extreme heat alert for parts of England on Monday and Tuesday, meaning the hot weather will be a possible threat to life. The UK Health Security Agency has declared a national emergency. Cabinet Minister Kit Malthouse is urging people to avoid unnecessary travel on the two hottest days.
It's the second COBRA meeting, and in between the two, obviously, the first red alert, heat alert in the country's history was issued, which meant that things had obviously worsened slightly. We expect the heat to last for 2 days on Monday and Tuesday, when there's a possibility that records will be broken. But then later in the week, and certainly starting later on Tuesday, cooler air should start to come in from the southwest.
Meanwhile, in Europe, thousands of people have been evacuated from their homes as wildfires sweep across parts of Spain, France and Portugal. More than 1,000 firefighters have been battling fires all week as officials issued health warnings for the heatwave. More than 12,000 residents have been evacuated in the southwest of France, with temperatures expected to hit over 40 degrees over the next few days. The final 5 Conservative leadership candidates have faced the first of 3 live TV debates clashing over tax cuts and gender politics. Former Chancellor Rishi Sunak defended his economic policies, calling Foreign Secretary Liz Truss's plans a fairy tale. Equalities Minister Kemi Badenoch and International Trade Secretary Penny Mordaunt traded words over trans issues. Backbencher Tommy Tugendhat said trust in the Tory party has been collapsing. Meanwhile, Rishi Sunak says the Conservative candidates are all on the same side.
I've got enormous respect and admiration for all of my colleagues who are standing to be leader, and it's right that we have passionate debate about these issues. And when this election is over, we have to remember we're all part of the same Conservative team, the same Conservative family, and we're going to come together and serve the British people.
And Buckingham Palace has released an official photograph to mark Camilla's 75th birthday. The Duchess of Cornwall is pictured sitting at a garden table with flowers and plants in the background. Camilla looks relaxed and smiling in the image, released ahead of that birthday. TV, online and DAB Plus radio, this is GB News. Now it's back to headliners.
I'm Mark Dolan, and this is Headliners, your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight, in the company of the brilliant comedians Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen. Let's start with tomorrow's front pages. And the Sunday Telegraph lead with Sunak vows to ditch EU laws holding Britain back. In the Independent, Sunak talks tough on Brexit in appeal for votes. The Observer, as Europe burns, climate chief warns I may quit if new PM dumps net zero plan. The Sunday Times, they are leading with the following. Mordaunt's gender claims undermined by leaked papers. The Sunday Express next. Rishi, I'll scrap EU red tape in first 100 days. And last but not least, 41 degrees centigrade, summer lovin', plus string vest boom put us in the mood for romance. And those are your front pages. Leo, let's get to that top story in The Observer. Trouble for our future Prime Minister already.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not sure if this is the most important story tomorrow, but basically the Cabinet Minister who led last year's landmark COP26 climate summit, I don't know if you remember it, it was in Glasgow. I don't know if they ironically put it in the coldest city in Europe, but all the world leaders jetted in on their private jets and then got limos to the conference just to make a point about how we shouldn't be doing that. So Alok Sharma, who organised that summit, has made a dramatic intervention in the Tory leadership race, suggesting he could resign if the incoming Prime Minister fails to commit to a strong agenda on the climate crisis. So, well, I'd say your terms are acceptable. Here's your P45. You know what I mean?
Three words for you. There's the door.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, right now, the last thing we should be worrying about is the climate crisis. All right, there's going to be nice weather on Wednesday or Monday or whenever it is. But at the moment, you know, the cost of living crisis, I think, is the thing that's affecting most people. And that is driven by the green levies. A third of all energy bills is green levies to fund, you know, new windmills and all this sort of thing. And also, because of net zero policy, we haven't been investing in our domestic oil and gas. So we haven't been fracking. We haven't exploited the Campbell oil field in the North Sea, for example.
And we've got coal.
And we've got coal as well, and we're not using any of it. Instead, we're like, oh no, we can just import it from Russia, and well, that hasn't worked out too well, has it? So now Russia's got us literally over a barrel. So I mean, it's not just causing huge costs for UK consumers, but it's also funding Putin's war in Ukraine. So I mean, net zero. I mean, it was a terrible idea anyway, but right now it's a disaster, and Alok Sharma should go. And luckily, I mean, the Tory leadership candidates. Although only Kemi Badenoch is the one who's scrapped, sort of, you know, said she doesn't care about net zero. A lot of them are sort of wavering on net zero. So Liz Truss has called for a temporary moratorium on the green energy levy. Penny Mordaunt has called for the green levies to be scrapped. Tom Tugendhat has wavered on net zero, but it doesn't matter because he'll never be PM.
No, probably not. Steve N. Allen, this is a political story as much as an environmental one, isn't it?
It is. But I think it's really important to separate out the terms a little bit here, because the thing that's linked to the cost of living crisis would be the levy, whereas the goal of net zero, you can still achieve that. You could be green, because we should have been also making sure that our nuclear programme was pretty swift, rather than just let it... I mean, let's have something that you can't use after 20 years because, you know, they become a bit dated. Let's not worry about it for a while and see what happens. What happens is we don't produce enough nuclear energy. And then look what happened.
Politicians shouldn't be in charge of energy policy.
Yes.
Because they don't do long-term thinking, do they?
GBNews should be in charge of energy policy.
Well, steady on. You never know.
You'd be like Homer Simpson in the nuclear plant, eating a donut and falling asleep.
I don't think I'd be that good.
Probably not.
But you can separate out the thing that causes the cost of living issues, the levy part of it, and yeah, look, it's like you can want the goal of net zero, but you can hate the way in which it's being achieved. Because, you know, if all of a sudden we don't use as much carbon, but we're using other ways of producing energy or other ways of doing things that don't produce carbon, no one's going, not enough carbon around. Do you know what I mean? It's about the thing that then impacts the economy, and you're right, the cost of living crisis is more important. But Alex Sharma's not going to talk about that because he's not hosting, like, COP26 of money. He's COP26 of climate.
Well put. Let's now have a look at our next story. And this is similar in terms of topic. It's Boris Johnson, who's not going to gatherings of more than 4 people anymore. He's learnt his lesson, hasn't he, Steve?
Yeah, this is about the news that the government were to hold another Cobra meeting about the heatwave. You hear that and you think, that's probably because the meeting room's got good aircon. That's the only reason. They're not going to be helping us out. They're thinking, let's have another meeting. The scandal part of it is that Boris Johnson didn't attend. He had something else to go to. The thing is, though, all the people who are complaining about this, like 3 seconds earlier, are so happy that Boris Johnson's losing the gig. Well, sure, you want him to do less. If you don't think he should be in office, he shouldn't be in the meeting room being in charge or something. So, I mean, look, the Met Office are warning people about this threat. It's the first time they've issued a red heat warning. They've done one of those. It could hit it could beat 38.7, our current record. Could even go over 40 degrees Celsius. I mean, those temperatures are the kind of temperatures you should only have if you're on holiday somewhere foreign. If you've not just nicked loads of food from a buffet breakfast, this ain't right for you. And the Met Office, I'd say you do need to heed their warnings because they might start naming heat waves instead to make them scarier. And no one wants to die in a hot Gladys. So, you know, look after yourselves.
No, you can have an experience in a hot Gladys but not die in one. The issue is, Leo, and it's ironic that people fly every summer to places like Dubai to enjoy these temperatures, but when it happens here, it's a crisis.
The same people who are now crying, saying, we're all going to die, we're all going to perish. You can even see the sort of propaganda we're fed. I saw on Twitter somebody compared the weather reports from like 20 years ago with the weather reports from now, and exact same temperatures 20 years ago. It was nice, it was sunny. You had a picture of a yellow sun smiling and all the rest of it. It might have been Teletubbies, I'm not sure. But the picture from now is that you're going to die, you're burning in the pits of Hades. So, yeah, there's a huge change. And to be honest, people worry about people dying in heat waves. The British Medical Journal did a study, a huge study, 74 million people, in 2015, and found that the cold weather kills 20 times as many people as hot weather. So climate change so far, all right, climate change, you know, with unpredictable weather patterns and all the rest of it, could well become a problem in the future. But so far, it's saved lives. And so far, the increased amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere has improved crop yields. And actually, you know, you're saying you're never going to get anybody saying we don't need more, you know, we need more carbon in the atmosphere. I think we need a bit more carbon in the atmosphere. We're dangerously, historically, you know, looking at prehistoric levels, we're at pretty dangerously low levels of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere.
If you're looking at prehistoric levels, but we don't have an ecosystem that has a prehistoric balance. If you want to be mainly tree, if you want a planet that's effectively all tree and not very big mammals, then let's get some of that.
Do you want Jurassic Park or not?
Do you not? No, because it turns out, I don't know if you've seen all the way to the end, but it does not end well for them.
It's not a documentary. Well, I mean, at the moment, in Cambrian times, it's 4,000 parts per million of carbon dioxide. We're now down at, like...
But that's because no one needed oxygen. No one needed oxygen back then.
If it goes down, if carbon dioxide goes down below 150 parts per million, all life on Earth ceases. And every year, the sea is sequestering carbon dioxide from the atmosphere. So if we don't put a little bit back, we should make sure we don't go too far.
Is that why you've bought a Hummer?
Yeah, even though you can't get them anymore.
Yeah, I found his house last night. He's still using the wood-burning stove.
Really?
Yeah, he's doing his bit for the environment.
Trying to breathe out more.
Stephen Allen, not only are you an outstanding comedian and television presenter, you are a scientist. Is it chemistry?
Chemistry is my background, yeah.
So I think, you know, you might be a bit more authoritative on this than Leo and myself.
No.
We can debate climate change and the science around it.
Google helps.
But can we agree that the science on it is not settled, or would you argue that the science is settled?
A majority of it is settled. Some issues, such as how those covalent bonds take in some photons and release it as heat, yeah, that happens. So we know that certain gases will change the energy of the system. The phrase global warming, even using temperature, is not very good. Talking about the heat of the system, it's an enthalpy issue. And if you look at that, then you can see that you've got more variation. If you were to plot the number of times you'd have things, you get a greater standard deviation over it. So those kind of things are settled. When you talk about how to deal with it, That's the unknowable.
Listen,
that's very humble, isn't it?
It's like pandemics. Scientists always, they want to be rock stars. They want to be on TV saying, oh, we're all going to die. With COVID, you know, these COVID scientists, they predict, you know, they've predicted all.
The modelling was wrong throughout.
Absolutely. Yeah, they've predicted, you know, 13 of the last 2 pandemics. And, you know, if you follow the science, actually the scientists tend to agree with the people giving them money.
Well, also, there is a slight filter that happens with journalism as well. You're right that the stories are, you're all going to die in a heatwave. But that's because that sells more than, isn't it, good weather?
And I think, actually, that's a good sort of landing zone for the climate debate, like COVID, which is the science is settled on COVID itself in terms of how it operates as a virus. The debate should be how you handle and how you cope with COVID. And unfortunately, we were told the science is settled, we must have lockdowns. I tend to disagree. But that's your point regarding climate, is that we can accept what's happening on a kind of geological and physical level, but how to tackle it is the debate. The only other brief thing on this, Steve and Alan, is the media's coverage of this story and the heatwave. Whatever happened to pretty girls in fountains?
Though I guarantee there'll be some Tuesday's Daily Star. I bet there'll be some. It still happens. It's mainly Daily Star based. And, go for it. I mean, this is the only... If you want to get in the newspapers, just frolic in a park. I don't know how that's news, like women still in parks, but they always give you the pictures.
Always.
Did you know that pregnant women aren't supposed to swim in rivers or the sea?
Ever?
When they're pregnant.
Is that right?
After the baby
why
comes
is that?
out. In case there's an infection.
Is the science settled on that? There you go. Let's move on now. The Sunday Times next. And is Penny Mordaunt the right leader for the Conservatives, Leo?
Well, the jury's still out on that. She's certainly ahead in the bookies, but she made these claims in the debate yesterday that she never supported gender self-identification. But now there's evidence that's come to light that suggests that she did support gender self-identification. So this self-ID is the belief that a person should be able to determine their gender identity without any medical requirements. And it's been
somebody with a man's body can go, I'm a woman now.
Well, it's been an incredible boon for women like me. But at the moment, the rules are people wishing to obtain gender recognition certificate to legally transition must provide 2 medical reports. So a diagnosis of gender dysphoria, and then another one detailing what medical treatment they've received to a gender recognition panel. And these rules that Penny Mordaunt proposed when she was Equalities Minister would have loosened that and just basically. The medical requirement would have dropped substantially. So she oversaw a move to demedicalise. Basically, you self-ID, and the only safeguard is there's some form of assessment that you're of sound mind. And obviously, self-ID. I mean, although it's nice to let people identify as what they want, and then if a woman like me goes to prison, you don't want to know what I do in a women's prison. But it would be, I'd be making beer in a tennis ball. No, I mean, I'm being flippant, but sexual predators. I shouldn't use myself as an example, but sexual predators.
Not with your CV.
Have gone to women's prisons. Male sexual predators have gone to women's prisons, saying that they're women.
I think you'd go down a storm in a prison, I've got to say. The bottom line is that Penny Mordaunt is woke as hell, isn't she? Toby Young, the broadcaster, tweeted earlier that he was reading her book about the future of Britain, and it read like a great manifesto for the next Labour leader. A glowing introduction from Bill Gates.
Yeah.
And just lots about climate change and about LGBT.
Yeah.
That's right.
And yet the bookies think that she could well be the next leader. And to be honest, she'd have a much better chance of leading the Conservatives to victory than Rishi, who is pretty much openly stated he doesn't know any working class people.
What do you think? I mean, who might Labour fear most? Would they be worried about Penny Mordaunt, given that she's to the left of the party?
Yeah, I think that would be a bigger threat to Labour. This story is a classic one of those because some of the medical rules were being relaxed, but not all of them.
Yeah.
You just pick your side, and why waste your time arguing about it? She'll use the fact that some tests were still left in to say that she wasn't after self-identification. People who don't like her will say because some were removed, she was aiming for self-identification. And no one's going to change their minds.
The best thing about Penny Mordaunt is you can do a lot of puns with her name. Penny for your votes.
Yep.
Less is Mordaunt.
There was a bit in the debate where
Pennies from heaven?
she actually said this policy wouldn't cost a penny. And I thought, oh no, she didn't do a joke. I thought she was aiming for
Okay,
it.
well, plenty more headlines to come, at least, if she becomes our next Prime Minister. The Observer now, and apparently President Biden is in Saudi Arabia using his fists on the Saudi Crown Prince, Leo.
Yeah, but not in the way that would be vastly more entertaining. So basically, he's gone over to the Middle East to do a tour. He's been in Israel and all the rest of it. And there's a different caption on the screen. I don't know if they want to take that down while I'm talking about this story. There we go.
Just to make sure they're concentrating.
Yeah, he's gone over and he's met with Saudi Arabia's Crown Prince. So, Mohammed bin Salman is, a few years ago, he took the helm in Saudi Arabia, and he's not a good guy. He's been starting wars. He's started this horrific, pointless war in Yemen, and he's killed and imprisoned his critics, including there's a notorious murder of I think everybody's read that by now. You can take that one down as well. But there's a notorious murder of the journalist Jamal Khashoggi in Turkey. I think, was it in the Saudi embassy in Turkey?
Shocking scenes.
Yeah, so absolutely shocking. But Joe Biden's gone over there. Obviously, at the moment, previously he said, I'm going to ostracise this guy, but he probably said it slower than that. But now he's gone over there and he's been all chummy with them. They didn't shake hands, but they fist bumped and they were grinning at each other. And, basically, it's part of the realpolitik. That was then, this is now. Now we need oil. And Saudi Arabia's got oil. And also strategic influence as China and Russia, emerge as, big powers.
Total double standards, total hypocrisy from the world's first woke president.
Yeah. Absolutely. And it just shows, why try to be woke? This is the great thing about Donald Trump. Well, one of the many great things about Donald Trump. He was just honest about the fact, these guys are terrible, but I've got to do business with them. And that was him talking about his own cabinet.
Except he incited a revolution at the heart of American democracy.
They call it a revolution.
Apart from that,
it's like a picnic.
He was great. What do we think, Steve N. Allen? Are you disappointed by Joe Biden, this progressive figure, going to the Middle East with his, basically with his begging bowl?
I don't think this is a flaw simply as the person you've described as the first woke president. This is a flaw of politicians. We do the same thing. We chum up to people that we shouldn't be. If we actually had morals, we wouldn't be doing as many deals with the headline that we saw about China that we didn't get to chat into. You're right, it's a reality that the money sometimes ends up trumping things that it shouldn't, but there's no point pretending that it's just Joe Biden doing it. Absolutely everyone's doing it. You got some oil, you can get away with anything.
Yep, I think that's a really fair point. Our final story before the break, the Mail on Sunday. And if you think you can taste the rainbow, perhaps you've got brain damage, Steve.
Yeah, it's a great headline, isn't it? Taste the brain damage. Beautiful. Skittles manufacturer is being sued over claims that they contain a poisonous colourant, titanium dioxide. I believe it's it's TiO2, if you're looking at your valence levels.
Show off.
How much is in the atmosphere, Steve?
None.
Right.
Because it wouldn't be a gas.
Wasn't TiO2 a boy band in the 80s?
Probably.
I think the lead singer killed himself, didn't he?
It's a
was gay.
dark turn. It's a beautiful chemical, TiO2, beautiful chemical. It forms a nice lattice if you're making paint. But if you're making food, maybe not so much. Now,
is TiO2, is it like the new Farrow and Ball? The middle-class people covering their living rooms in it now.
Honestly, until a year ago, I didn't realise there was anything posher than Dulux. That's how working class I am. But apparently, we've got our front room painted in something else. This Mars Inc., they're the ones who make it. They're being sued by this woman in California who claims that the colourant is dangerous. It's worth bearing in mind that it's considered a food colouring anyway. So it's been licensed. It's a food colouring that you can use. Now, the European Union are banning it, so she's suing, saying, well, if they're banning it, it's probably bad for you. And there are some links to things like its ability to change your DNA, which means X-Men's happening. Yeah. It's never superpowers.
I can't imagine that there'd be something that changes your DNA knocking about. I mean, that's just... surely that's the stuff of science fiction, isn't it? But I mean, it's a worry because we've been hoovering up these Skittles like they're going out of fashion.
No, it's not a worry, though, is it? Because if you don't want to eat an actual food colouring that they are allowed to put in things, don't eat it. But it's really important to remember, no one forces you to eat Skittles.
Yeah, nobody is eating Skittles as a health food.
Yeah.
And that's another thing. And also they say here, I mean, they use this language.
Scotland, where it is
they say, well, yeah, it's classed as a vegetable there. But, it damages vital organs if consumed in dangerous quantities. Well, how much is a dangerous quantity? Anything can be, if you eat 10 loaves of bread, that's a dangerous quantity of bread.
Yeah, definitely. Steve, do you think, going back to your CV, your career as a chemist, do you think that the food industry have gone too far now with the kind of Frankenscience?
Yes, actually. as much as I should be saying chemicals are great for you, you don't need titanium in your system, so don't have it. It's great for a watch, not great in your body. It's not like molybdenum and iron and these weird things that you do need, some zinc. We said on the show recently, the big change was when food stopped being made in farms and started being made in factories. In the olden days, factories used to make circuit boards. Now they make our food.
Yeah.
Probably not right.
Oh, there you go. Very, very wise words. Cookery Corner there from Steve N. Allen. Lots more coming up in the next part of the show. Leo will be extolling the virtues of primary school drag queens, why some naughty Brits might lose their passports, and what's happening to our high streets. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30 a.m. every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
I'm Mark Dolan. This is Headline as your first look at tomorrow's papers. Tonight in the company of the brilliant comedians Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen. We kick off in this part with the Sunday Telegraph, and primary school sure has changed since I was a kid, Leo.
Yeah, so they've scheduled 70 drag queen storytime classes for primary school children around Britain in schools and libraries. So there's a summer tour starting this month, and this has made parents angry over the sexualised nature of these shows. So, you know, the parents have had a backlash because some of the shows, there have been pictures shared of one of the performers, his penis was visible, which is illegal. That's illegal, and especially in a primary school.
Well, you'll need to speak to my maths teacher, Mr. Baxter, from the 80s.
Yeah, well, I'm sure.
He was guilty of a similar crime.
Well, yeah, I mean, to be honest, I think some of the people who, might have been paedophiles in the past might be attracted to this as a way of, being sexualised in front of children. Well, there's been one of the drag queen storytime readers, Albert Garcia, was arrested for child sexual assault, and one of the drag queen storytime organisers, Brett Blom in America, was arrested for child pornography. And also, Drag Queen Story Hour UK has hit back. You know, these parents are like, well, what are you doing? We don't want, drag queens. Drag is great, by the way, hugely entertaining. It's great for adults at 11 p.m. on a Friday night in Soho. You know, you have some drinks and you watch, outrageous stuff. It's great fun. Not for 3-year-olds. That's, just wait until they're 6. No, but the Drag Queen Story Hour UK has hit back at the parents, saying an unnamed far-right neo-Nazi group has been block booking tickets to the shows to try and disrupt the shows. That's not a far-right neo-Nazi group. That's Mumsnet. Like, if you think Mumsnet is far-right neo-Nazi, you might have to just look at your own values and see if maybe you've sort of digressed from the norms.
Yes, there's one particular school in the US this month that welcomed a speaker to the school, and it was an elementary school, and it was a drag performer, and as Leo said, no problem with the genre of drag artists, but this artist, her name is Miss Testicle. So,
right,
I think that speaks volumes.
Interesting.
Have we crossed the Rubicon, do you think?
Well, normally this story...
She's sweaty in this way.
And I'm afraid to say stubbly as well.
Stubbly
bubbly.
This is the kind of story where normally my brain would go to the, oh, do you have to send the kids to it? If you don't, then opt out. I mean, in general, I'm the press the off button and stop complaining. But the other part of me is, actually, there's no raising awareness that's needed here, is there? Because if you want to teach about how family structures can be different, brilliant, that can happen in schools. But no one needs to raise awareness of drag performers in the same way that you don't need an outreach programme to teach cabaret or tap dancing to kids. So it's probably not needed, would be my thought.
OK, let me tell you that Miss Testicle is my Mark Meets guest tomorrow on Mark Dolan Tonight. No, I'm kidding.
Is meat spelt differently?
It's not Miss Testicle, although we might put a bit in, because I'm sure it will be good for ratings. Actually, tomorrow night, we've got a star of Emmerdale in our Mark Meets. Plus, don't forget, tomorrow we will be getting reaction to the next Tory party leadership.
All right, Mark,
battle.
this isn't your...
Oh, I'm there.
I've got a show to do.
I'm selling my wares, baby. I'm selling my wares.
Oh, yeah. And I've got a fridge freezer. I've got a fridge freezer if anybody wants to buy it. Only 13 years old.
It's on eBay. Marky Dolan 69. Lots more to come, including this one in the Sunday Mirror. Forget joining ISIS. There's a new reason why Brits may soon lose their passports. Steve.
Yes, Brits who take cocaine while holidaying could lose their passports. This is a cocaine story, quite fittingly, from the Mirror. And new legislation has been proposed by the government would enable police to confiscate passports and driver's licence from people intending to travel whilst possessing a Class A drug. The idea is to try and de-incentivise it. Before you get to the having your passport taken away, one of them is going on an awareness course, like a speed awareness course, just the other speed, I guess. And, I mean, the message here is do a staycation then. They can't touch you for it, if that's what you want to do. It seems bizarre the way that they're trying to do it. The Home Office wanted to confiscate passports to be applied to all drug users, but the police can only enforce it if the offence is travel-related. We're being punished, we're being grounded for things.
I don't like it. It's got echoes of the Chinese Communist Party for me.
Well, for me, it just messes things up. The rules should be simple. Break a law, you go to prison or you get a fine or something.
Yeah.
The punishments for breaking laws, we know what they are.
Exactly.
The idea that you could be punished in a different area of your life. I even thought it was weird that if you did a cycling offence, they could put points on your driving licence. Not that I'm a big fan of people doing cycling offences, but it feels like stick to your lane in your punishment. And this is punishing one area.
By the way, under cycling offences, would a skimpy outfit in Lycra qualify?
No, I love it. That's how I got here today.
You're safe, Mark.
But and also the fact that this
what about Miss Testicle when she's on a bike? Because she does rather bulge.
Are we talking about the drag queen, or is this the name for your when you're wearing the...
It's a private nickname, which will be revealed later when we're off air.
But the idea that politicians come up with this when they've previously gone around the Houses of Parliament and swabbed the toilets, there's got enough stuff there for a great night out.
I think there's a slightly authoritarian sort of element to this.
And it's also unnecessarily bureaucratic and overcomplicated. You know, banning people from travelling. Like, I mean, I know we do it for... it's not an entirely new punishment for crime. So football hooligans, for example, they don't get to travel abroad to go and you know, scream for, you know, do the country proud overseas. But yeah, this is just like, it's too complicated. And it's not going to be the thing that's on drug users' minds when they're thinking about doing a line at a party or whatever it is. They're not going to be like, oh my God, but what if I go on holiday in 9 months' time? It's just not a realistic...
And also, just think how many mainstream TV presenters will be prevented from travelling if this law is enacted. You know who you are. Let's go to the Sunday Telegraph now. And the BBC didn't do its due diligence on this particular guest, it seems, Leo.
No, they didn't do any diligence at all. I knew this. So the BBC has apologised for interviewing a transgender athlete who boasted about knocking women out in a discussion about female-only sports. So this was Fallon Fox, who's an American former martial arts fighter who was born male and transitioned to being a woman.
She is such a naughty girl.
And yeah, I don't know if we've got a picture, but she previously tweeted, "For the record, I knocked 2 out. One woman's skull was fractured, the other not. And just so you know, I enjoyed it. See, I love smacking up women in the cage who talk transphobic nonsense. It's bliss." So, and one of the women who fought said she'd never felt a punch, she'd never felt strength like that, because, this is an male MMA fighter who transitioned to being a woman.
And what BBC programme was this?
This Radio 4 Today programme.
Oh, right. I thought it was the Antiques Roadshow or something.
No. So they invited her on to talk about, female-only sports, and, there's currently a debate about transgender women's participation or exclusion from female-only sports. It doesn't seem to have done the cause for transgender fighters, transgender sports people being included any favours by, boasting about crushing skulls.
Yeah, I mean, Steve, trans women have an advantage, don't they, over biological women in athletic sport, which is why I never played tennis with men. But the issue is that, the B somehow... they definitely haven't done their homework, have they, on this?
No, and I think it's more likely to be a mistake than if you read further in there. Some people think it's some sort of an agenda. I'm not saying whether they have an agenda or not. My point is, independent of this, producers, they drop the ball sometimes. It's all about, they get people in who don't have enough experience to do the job. There's a lot of pressure. Even with the BBC, though, it's incredibly overstaffed. When I used to do radio shows for the BBC, we used to have 4 producers listening to the output. I mean, I know I'm risky, but I'm not that risky. Do you know what I mean? But yeah, this is the MMA side of it. I've always thought, if you plot through history, you hear about what it was like in Roman times when they used to, have all the gladiators. You think, aren't we a better culture now? Then all of a sudden, there's been a bit of a turn. It went not just boxing, but back into MMA.
Yeah, and male on female. Yeah. But, you say there's not an agenda in the BBC. They've
no, I
had
didn't
training.
say that. My point was independent of that point.
Well, there's definitely an agenda. They've had training. They were told there's more than 150 genders, and to develop their trans brand by adding pronouns to email signatures. This was in training leaked by a whistleblower.
There you go. Well, look, that one's going to run The Observer now, and it's my contention that capitalism peaked when Woolworths, C&A and Rumbelows were the go-to hit places on our high streets. Those days are far behind us, aren't they, Steve?
Yeah, this article goes on about London's Oxford Street, so London-centric. And actually, they talk about all the boarded-up shops, the ones that have closed down, but that actually has happened everywhere. So this article is incredibly London-centric, that it somehow, I feel that it implies, surely this can't happen on Oxford Street. Of course it could, because it's going to happen everywhere. And what's so great about Oxford Street? It's sweaty, you have to deal with people. Ooh, I'm not a fan, I've met some. You can't hold back change and people order things online. I'm surprised it's not happened more for Oxford Street, because with more people shopping online, it means if you've got an actual physical business, rent's going to be your problem. And I imagine it costs a pretty penny to have some store frontage on Oxford Street.
Yeah. I mean, the shops closing on Oxford Street being replaced by, these sort of pop-up shops and the American candy shops, which are apparently a front for money laundering. They need to change the zoning for properties in business districts, as retail districts, as our shopping habits change. We're buying stuff online, so let offices and retail become homes, and also they need to protect venues in these areas. On Oxford Street, we've got the 100 Club, which is an amazing venue with loads of history. They need to make sure those venues stay there, because I think it's the venues that make it drag people, bring people into the area and make it a desirable place to live, rather than having another Starbucks or a Topshop.
For sure. OK, well, that brings us to the end of this part of the show, but we've saved our best till last. Coming up, why the arts are a middle-class stomping ground. Gareth Southgate has a dilemma. And we'll be asking the age-old question, do bees think? Turns out, yes, they do. See you in 2.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV.
On radio.
On digital. Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices with honest and civilised conversation.
We are not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel. Hi there, it's Stephen and Anne.
At breakfast from 6 a.m, you'll always be caught up with everything you need to know, the latest headlines, opinions and debates.
We'll bring you the good news and the bad, but most of all, we're here for you.
Remember, send in your views and let us know what you would like us to talk about.
That's because we're your news channel. And every morning at 6 a.m, it's breakfast on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood and join me 9:30am every weekday for The Briefing, your one-stop shop for everything you need to know about what's going on in politics today.
I wonder if this is a deal that might need to be like the biscuits in this factory, twice baked.
Is there not an opportunity here to win out against the extremes?
Tom Harwood, GB News.
What are you going to do about it?
Things should have been done differently, and they certainly are being done differently.
Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, 9:30 Monday to Friday on GB News.
Where would you like to go?
Just take me to the studio, please, mate. You know where you're going. I've got a show to do. Friday Night Feast on GB News, 7 p.m. And it's like nothing you've ever seen before. We take a different angle on the week's biggest news stories. The viewers and listeners set me some absolutely mad challenges to do. We tried to rehome a rescue dog. And yes, there's some other wacky stuff in there as well. I feel like I could take on the world. Well, that's that. Friday Night Feast with me, Patrick Christie's, every Friday, 7 till 9 p.m. on GB News. Be there.
I'm Mark Dolan, and you're watching Headliners. A first look at tomorrow's papers tonight in the company of the marvellously talented comedians Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen. The Observer now, and a subject the three of us know very well, the Edinburgh Fringe Festival. And Steve, it's not all it's cracked up to be.
It's expensive. Shock, horror. I mean, no one sat around here is going to be surprised by that. But this is, it's unaffordable to young performers, according to Brian Cox. We should clarify that's the one from Succession, not the sciencey one. If anything, he was more optimistic. He said something about things only getting better. But this Brian Cox says that the cost of rental accommodation is squeezing the lifeblood out of the festival. I mean, he's right. It's ridiculously expensive. You go up there to lose money. Everyone else around you seems to get money out of it. It's like the acts pay, the audience pays. Someone's raking in some money.
I make money there.
But you by doing one of the free shows to make a little bit of scratch.
Yeah, like last year, I think I made I made loads of money.
But by using the free shows, right?
Yeah, free Fringe. Anybody pays is an absolute mug, and you can't stop people being mugged. All these comedians, they're like, oh, I've got to do the Fringe, which you don't have to do the Fringe because we've got the internet now. So if you want to reach your audience, build your profile, use the internet. It's free and it's right in your hand. There's no excuse for not doing it. If you go up to the Fringe, no, and also they're all like, oh, I've got dreams of being a star. They've already decided. You know, whoever's like filleted the barbed penis of the devil in April is the person who's picked for the Fringe Awards and all the rest of it. And also, you know, they deserve all these lefty comedians be like, oh yeah, the SNP are so great. It's SNP property rules that make accommodation so unaffordable. They used to be able to, landlords used to be able to rent out student accommodation during the Fringe. SNP put a stop to that, so now there's a complete lack of accommodation. We're talking tens of thousands.
Oh, so normally what would happen is there'd be a student that would be renting a room in a flat during term time, and it would be vacant over summer, and the landlord who owned the property could rent out that room to a comedian.
Yeah.
For 5 weeks.
Yeah.
And that's been stopped.
Yeah, and that would also subsidise the students' rent as well, because that would be money going into that property.
Why did they stop that?
They stopped that because the SNP are completely idiotic and shouldn't be in government. All their ideas are terrible, and the only thing holding them back from completely destroying the country is the fact that their bureaucracy and corruption stops them doing it faster.
Oh dear. Well, not a good news story indeed. Let's go now on to the issue of middle-class sensibilities. This in the Sunday Telegraph, Leo.
Yeah, more arts nonsense that, frankly, everybody involved deserves everything they're getting. So this Northern School of Contemporary Dance, they've dropped ballet from their auditions and from their teaching because they say it's rooted in white European ideas. Yeah, you're in Europe. You know, of course, it's going to be rooted in European ideas. It was made in Europe, and like mostly people were white when ballet was made. You know what I mean? Like, why would that be seen as a terrible thing? But they want to decolonise the curriculum, so Francesca McCarthy is the head of undergraduate studies at the Conservatoire, which is the dance school, explained that ballet is essentially an elitist form. Yes, it's elitist. It's ballet. You knew this before you took the job. This is like getting a job in a chip shop and then complaining that it smells of chips.
But also that's patronising towards working class people who may enjoy ballet, and many do.
No, they don't. She says ballet. No, come on. Ballet and opera and pointless things like that are a punishment for posh people. So she also says, she goes on to say, it's a very specific form that is built around particular white European ideas and body shapes that are often alienating to young people who do not fit that aesthetic ideal. I mean, just shut up, you idiot. She also says ballet has strongly gendered roots in terms of the movement vocabulary. So men lift women as opposed to women lifting men. Come on. I think there's a reason for that. Men are heavy and women aren't as strong.
This is the same school of thought that would have Mozart and Shakespeare as problematic.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I can't. To be honest, I can't wait until we've got Sharia law and like all these people are just, you know, wearing the full hijab or burqa, whatever it's called. Yeah. You know what I mean? Like, you know, just open the borders. Let's make it happen next week.
This is a story that I struggle with because I don't particularly mind if they drop ballet because I'm working class and don't care and it's a ridiculous thing. And I don't care if they do drop ballet. It's just if no one ever balleted again, I'd be absolutely fine with it. So I really struggle to be pro-ballet. Like, I offended
you look really good in tight tights.
Yeah, but I do that more for...
Do you know who you remind me of? You remind me of Miss Testicle.
Really?
Yeah.
Left or right?
Similar form.
Yeah.
The head.
Is it? It's
she dresses
a slight amount of hair on it. Beautiful.
Let's now crack on. We've got a few more stories to get through before we finish. The Mail on Sunday. And it used to be that if you were assembling an England squad, you just picked on who was the best player. Well, provided they were in Manchester United or Liverpool, of course. But things have got a bit more complicated, Steve.
Yep, get ready to chop up a mask again. You got to get upset, Mark. Oh. It's in the mail, so you know what kind of upset you're going to get. England boss Gareth Southgate could be forced to axe unvaccinated stars from his World Cup later this year. Let's get into the detail. This is because of the rules in Qatar. So at the moment, if you're unvaccinated, you have to self-isolate for 5 days. This could mean that with England's first World Cup fixture on the tournament being on the opening day, November 21st, just 6 days after they're scheduled to arrive, it means they wouldn't have trained during those 5 days, so they wouldn't get... I mean, just turn up earlier. Just literally solve it yourself. How would these millionaires afford the plane ticket, though? I don't know. But if you could solve that problem, it's not actually as much of a panic story as the Mail's made it out to be.
Do you think that the heat has now come out of the vaccine debate, Stephen Allen?
Yeah, I mean, I read this and be like, oh, I mean, let them play. I don't see what the issue would be. But again, it is a rule of Qatar.
It's not as much of a vexed issue as it was when Novak Djokovic couldn't get into Australia.
It's also probably not the worst treatment Qatar's done to people involved in the World Cup. So, again, difficult to care.
Yeah. Leo, anything to add to this? Or
no, I think
nothing to see here.
I think it's boring and it's a non-story.
Okay, well, not stopped me in the past, let me tell you. Sunday Times now, and we all know that James Bond is a legendary Lothario, but it turns out his creator had some ideas on how to get the ladies himself, didn't he, Leo?
Yeah, this is news. So Ian Fleming, the guy who wrote a lot of the James Bond books and screenplays, all of them apparently. No, I think there've been some Sebastian,
Sure, but I mean, he was like Arthur Conan Doyle created, Sherlock Holmes, and so I think it's fair to say that he's behind Bond.
And Roald Dahl wrote some of the scripts. But anyway, I'm pretty sure that being dead, Ian Fleming's not involved anymore. But anyway, getting back to this story, he wrote a list of 13 commandments for James Bond, and they're fantastic. So he said, beware of motor cars with 2 women in the front seat. He said, don't play cards against married couples unless they're drunk. And he said, you should cut down on alcohol when your eyes get red and stop smoking when your breath feels short. He said, don't worry about cirrhosis of the liver or cancer. Live until you're dead. He said, avoid people who call you old boy and all politicians. Good advice. As well as to beware people who smell and to tread carefully in the company of moustaches, sideburns or beards. You wouldn't be very happy here. And he also said...
I'm wearing an ankle bracelet.
He also said, never eat scrambled eggs unless you make them yourself. It's a very arbitrary advice. But
I do like the bit where he says about you don't worry about cirrhosis of the liver, drink whatever, live until you're dead. Died at the age of 56.
From
heart
condition. It's awkward, though, for Stephen Allen, because you always travel in a car with 2 women in the front seat, don't you?
Yes, it's safer that way.
How do you steer?
You have to reach round.
The Sunday Telegraph once more now, and some people struggle with inner confidence. We might not be the best 3 to discuss this particular story, as we are absolute chads, aren't we?
But I do think it's about imposter syndrome. I think comedians have a lot of imposter syndrome. Because
in this case, probably rightly so.
But yeah, but the problem is with doing comedy is that, it doesn't matter how good it goes one night, the next night could be different. So you're always on the edge of, am I good, was it worth it? But the syndrome was identified in 1978 by 2 psychologists, Pauline Clance and Suzanne Immers, who then said it was only affecting women. Since then, it's been... turns out men might not be full of confidence anyway, but they say it's because men have testosterone. They call it the confidence hormone. And it does mean that women are more likely, they say, to give in to self-doubt, which kind of means it's right. If you're saying to yourself, you know what, I'm probably going to mess this up, yeah, you are, because you're more likely to give in to self-doubt. So imposter syndrome just becomes being bad at things.
Yes. Self-fulfilling prophecy.
Yeah.
Not something you've suffered from, Leo.
No, well, I think comedians would do... Well, I think the better comedians do come away from a gig and be like, oh, my God, it was so terrible, and critique every part, because that's how you improve. You know, joy is the enemy of progress. And you see comedians who are completely delusional and think they smash it are always terrible. But some of these people that are, backing this move, this charity or whatever it is. So we've got Pippa Murray, who founded a nut butter startup, Pip and Nut, in 2015, and the business is thriving. Recently secured £1 million in investment, still battles her own IS demons, imposter syndrome demons. And it's like, well, yeah, you haven't cured cancer. It's just peanut butter. You haven't even invented peanut butter. You put it in a different jar and now you're selling it in Sainsbury's. It's not like, I think you should have some imposter syndrome.
What I don't like about this story is it's doing that thing of feeling doubt is a behaviour, it's not an identity. But as soon as you start to believe, like, I have imposter syndrome, therefore I'm riddled with that, I couldn't do anything because of all my doubts. Yeah. You're just giving yourself a weekend off. You're giving an excuse not to work harder.
Yep, and on that note, let's have a look at the Observer now. And I've got a simple question. If bees are so smart, why are they dying off, Leo?
Probably because of all the titanium oxide on Skittles, which they're lured to because of the bright colours. But so this person, Lars Chitka, he's been studying bees for 30 years and is considered one of the world's leading experts on bee sensory systems and cognition. And he's just written a book, which he's trying to sell with this article in the Observer. It's called The Mind of a Bee. And he argues that bees need our protection, not just because that's the thing that he's made his whole career about. He says they're useful for crop pollination. I agree with that. Biodiversity, yep. But he also says they may be sentient beings, and humans have an ethical obligation to ensure their survival. I'm pretty sure they're not sentient, but he says that they can count, recognise images of human faces, and learn simple tool use and abstract concepts. I mean, I just want to know how fast can we train them to drive trains, and then we can, we can do away with these strikes. Again, can they handle baggage? Just a swarm of bees lifting a suitcase onto a 747.
I feel a bit bad. I have a shoot-to-kill policy when it comes to bees. Is that wrong?
Yeah, it's wrong. But not because they're sentient, because, as you say, they're probably not. But even when you read this, they're more stupid than a crow. And we're not going around saving crows left, right and centre.
You stupid bees.
And an octopus would just look at these bees and go, look at a bunch of fools.
Or a gerbil.
I think the biggest fool here is, in his latest book, The Mind of a Bee, why is it not called Hive Mind?
Missed the trick.
He should have got a bee to help him.
Well, that's exactly right. Like the subject of his books, he's just not...
You don't kill bees, do you?
I do, yeah.
You kill bees?
I love to kill bees.
But bees are really, really good. They're useful. They're good.
And I've got an amazing life hack, which I discovered, because you would normally use fly spray to kill a bee.
No, I would never. I've
bee spray.
I've found bees before, and I've given them sugar and a spoon to help them come back to life and
Well, you're part of the problem, then.
I think you're part of the problem.
You're the reason why we all get stung every year.
Well, we're not getting stung because
they're outdoors.
They're all dying out, and now the crops aren't getting pollinated.
Are you responsible for the midges as well?
You shouldn't be allowed any crops.
On this topic, though, I just have to point out I was stung by a wasp today on this eyelid. Wasps, you can kill them all day long. Take them out.
I've got your back, baby. The Observer, they're covering that bee story. Now the Sunday Times, and if the upcoming heatwave is going to become a regular phenomenon, we better get ready to pay for it. Literally, Steve.
Yeah, this article looks at whether the hot weather impacts our economy. I mean, obviously, we buy some things. I don't know. On this show, I've recently talked about how my shed is now a studio and office space. It's got aircon in it now. Yeah, I've airconned the shed.
Is it a sort of self-standing device?
Portable unit, yeah, one of those. And at the moment, I'm just using the thing that puts the vent through the window, but I'm getting that fixed.
And how does it work? Do you have to put water into it or something?
No. Yeah, if you want to buy one of those cheap water air coolers, if I want damp. No, this is proper aircon.
That's amazing.
But, I mean, that's only one of the things people are buying.
Is it quiet? Or can you hear it during the podcast?
You can definitely hear it. I do a radio show from the shed, and I can only put it on during the songs. But I didn't think it entirely through. But so the heat does impact
Bohemian Rhapsody every show now.
Yeah, not just to go to the toilet, but to cool it down. So many things we buy, more fans, more drinks, loose clothing. They found that there is a statistical significant, albeit small, effect that the weather has on the economy. It's not really worth it, is it? In America, they did research, and they've argued similar. Stanford University found that the growth rate of output per capita peaks at around 13 degrees Celsius and declines above it. I mean, great, but what are we going to do about this?
Yeah.
Let's be a bit colder then to improve productivity. It's very much like we can't control that.
Yeah, we've just come through a pandemic that shut down the economy for 2 years, and people are saying, "Oh, what about the impact of it's going to be a bit warmer on Tuesday?" It's absolute nonsense.
When did we start caring about the economy?
Yeah, and also if you've got shares in Wall's ice cream, you're going to be quids in.
Also, in a good way, the British people are very reckless about the weather when it's hot. We're
Absolutely.
foolhardy, aren't we? So I think that we buck the trend in terms of economic impacts, and I think when the weather's good, it's good for the economy.
This is how the British Empire conquered the world. The Dutch were afraid to go to hot countries, but Britain had no such
We went there in tweed suits.
Yeah, absolutely, and big top hats. But one thing I'm worried about, they've given advice to say, work from home, and they say some offices are saying, we can't keep the office at the right temperature, a sustainable temperature. But surely offices have got better aircon than most people's homes. So.
Not better than my shed.
It's a really good point. I sit in the Prius, but there you go, each to their own. A word of caution for this next story from the Sunday Times. It features incredibly triggering and upsetting scenes, some of them incredibly graphic and downright disturbing, Leo.
Yes, so there's a national Scrabble championship, and there isn't really a story there apart from there's a national Scrabble championship, and they go through. You won't believe what happens. People turn up and play Scrabble, and that's pretty much it. There is one bit that's quite interesting. So after Black Lives Matter, the makers of Scrabble, Mattel, they do the official board and everything. They decided they should take out any problematic words, so they took out 419 words. Not just racial slurs, but homophobic insults and even religious words such as Jew and Jesuitic, which I can't imagine how anybody would be triggered or offended by them. Unless you had different words before them. But that's an absolute nonsense. There is actually a really good documentary on I can't remember the name of it, on competitive Scrabble playing. This is before it became a big thing. And there's so many characters in the documentary. There's a guy with a tube in his nose, and he drains bile into a Tupperware box. And
sounds nice. Is he single?
I'm not sure. This was like 15, 20 years ago. So, but really good documentary, Scrabble documentary. Google that. I'm sure there's not many of them.
Well, I'll ask Martin to have a look for it before we come off air. Scrabble documentary. Last but not least, the Daily Star, and classic comedy subject always reaps dividends. Baby coffins.
Yeah, thanks. The creepy collector of these weird antiques was woken by police demanding to see inside a child's coffin. Unique antique collector, which seems like the kind of thing you have to do before you go on stage. It's one of those warm-ups, isn't it, that act as a unique antique collector. And horror fan John Long said he's been left offended and totally distressed after the police came round to look in the coffin. Really, John? Are you really surprised? You got a kid's coffin. Every so often someone's going to be, that's a bit weird, and he showed him inside it, and you really should get over it. But he said the coffin was in the corner of the room. I had to open it and show them what was inside, and we're all hoping nothing, aren't we?
Of course.
Yeah.
There was a doll in there. Even weirder, John.
Yeah.
So that's, yeah. And apparently they saw it, they were quite happy and left. And then laughed when they got outside the building, we imagine. He said, the whole thing has got me really upset. I couldn't sleep at night. You're a horror fan. That's your ideal night, John. You stayed up all night and heard sounds. It's your hobby.
Yeah. And also he says, I couldn't sleep at night. It's not because of the stress from the cops turning up. No, it's because you've got a doll in a coffin in your room. That's the start of like the most terrifying night in a haunted house I can imagine.
Terrifying indeed. I will not be looking forward to my Airbnb stay there next week. Thanks to my amazing colleagues tonight, Leo Kearse and Steve N. Allen. We're back with more headlines tomorrow at 11. And join me at 9 for Mark Dolan tonight. See you then.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
On Mark Dolan Tonight, we have a simple plan, which is to inform, stimulate, and entertain in equal measure. It's all about getting your opinions on the national television airwaves. I love my viewer emails, mark@gbnews.uk. So do join me from 9 p.m. to midnight every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday for big guests, big opinions, and a big presenter.